that this meeting will be recorded, that little bits of video and stills from the video may find their way out into our social media marketing. If you want us to destroy all records, make a request and we'll see what we can do. Welcome to Online Presenters Toastmasters. This is a club that meets online and focuses on learning skills for better webinars and online events. We want to thank RingCentral for allowing us to use the RingCentral Meetings platform at no cost. They want us to let you know that they're running in the communications cloud and that this video environment is integrated with a number of their other collaboration and communication tools. If you're new to online meetings, you should know that it's a good idea to use a headset or earbuds. Mute yourself when not speaking. Mute, unmute, and the video on and off are in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. And there are controls in the upper right-hand corner that let you toggle between seeing the active speaker and seeing the gallery view where you see everyone. Please keep an eye on the time. It can be easy to lose track as the images are shifting around. You can ask the timer for an audible cue if you think that would be helpful. If you're insecure about being able to keep track of the time, it's not also not a bad idea to use your own timing device or maybe the Toastmasters app on your phone so that you're not entirely dependent on the timer. If you're interested in becoming a member, go to our website and find the Join button. The instructions are there, the requirements are there. There is also a Renew Your Dues button that we added recently as we're starting to get into that season. So if you could renew your dues for the next 6 months in the next little while, that would be greatly appreciated. With that, it's showtime. And Roger, take it away.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Online Presenter tonight. First and foremost, this is a little bit of a pivot because we have originally planned this to be the Queen's English edition of Online Presenters. But one of our tag teammate got under the weather, so we have to pivot. But don't cry over spilled milk. This is our new theme for this evening. And usually when you hear that phrase, we think about having a positive attitude about how to face various different things that happens outside of our control. But I think more importantly is that we not just simply have a positive attitude, but we actually behave and act positively. Because sometimes I believe we may think too much. And think about doing something is very different from actually doing them. So as we continue to pivot and as we dive into this meeting, let us think about how, when things don't go our way or the way that we plan, how do we go about out of the situation and still benefit as much as we can? To help me out with this meeting, we have a number of role holders. Allow me to introduce them and let them tell us what they will be focusing on. First up, our R counter, Madam M.
Thank you so much. Did you ever listen to YouTube? Some of those speakers, their speeches are so full of filler words. You just turn it off. You can't stand it anymore. We don't want that to happen to any one of our members here tonight. Instead of doing a filler word, pause, smile, and do that deep breath thing. I feel tonight not so much count the filler words, but counting those deep breaths. Be aware. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Madam R counter. Our new timer for this evening is Mr. Jimmy Dent.
Hey, I'll be the timer tonight. I'm gonna hold this up for green. It's a green olive jar. This will be yellow, peanut butter jar with honey. And red will be a red notebook. And I'll be timing the speakers, the evaluators, and the table topics. If anybody wants an audible sound or signal, let me know, and I'll provide an audible signal. Back to you, Roger.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. Madam Grammarian, Carol.
Hi. I'm evaluating grammar. Are you speaking well? Do you need better feedback on how to improve your English? I'm hoping to pull out some really wonderful examples tonight and then give some feedback on some areas that could use some improvement. Please pass the baton back to our Toastmaster of the day, Roger.
Thank you, Madam Grammarian. As Carol focuses intently to our vocal, we have someone who's going to be focusing on how we look. Mr. Watcher, David.
So I will be watching for body language, what little bit of it you can fit in here. And I will also be watching for every other visual element to your presentation. The slides tend to be more important. Whatever visuals you choose to share will be important. Your lighting, these technical details that we're all still trying to get right. Yeah, I'm working on it. And so we'll try and give you some encouragement about what you can do better next time in that department as well. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. And of course, the most important, or at least one of the most important role, is the person who's going to be taking our vote. Mr. Vote Counter, Lou.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. As vote counter, I will be counting the votes and providing a verbal report at the end of the meeting, detailing who our winners are for our various speech segments. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. Vote Counter. And round out our, yes, Madam Tracy.
Is there a word of the day?
Word of the day, Grammarian. Our word of the day is
adapt. Can you adapt to the fact that I forgot the word of the day in my announcement? Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy. To round out our roll holder, our chat monitor, Mr. Quick.
Thank you, Toastmaster. I'm watching the chat and keeping a log of the very best so I can report it back into the chat at the end of the meeting. Toastmaster.
Thank you. The first part of our meeting will be our prepared speakers. We have three very different, very exciting speakers. Each one of them are working on something different. And our first speaker is Lois. Lois is working on her, this would have been a level 4 building skills, leading your team project in the pathway leadership development level 4. The title of her speech is the ABWA Ambassador Technology Committee. Lois was asked to chair the American Business Women's Association Ambassador Committee, Ambassador Technology Committee. With just this information, Lois assembled the team and immediately began to create and lead this project. Please welcome Lois as she walks us through the process of leading her team. Lois, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. The American Business Women's Association is celebrating its 70th anniversary this year in October at the National Women's Leadership Conference. In November, I was asked to chair the Ambassador Technology Committee. Because I have that helium arm, of course I said, yes, I'll do it. I didn't have to go hunting for volunteers because everyone was coming to me. I had 6 amazing women from across the country. We met for the first time in December. Not knowing a lot about any of these individual women, the first thing I had on the agenda was, tell us about yourself. What do you know about technology and what can you provide to the group? It was really interesting. 3 of the women answered like this. I don't know technology. I signed up because I want to learn. I went, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. And I was lucky that the other 3 women had a great grasp on technology. We then went ahead and said, what's the purpose of this committee? And we all looked at each other going, well, we're the ambassadors, the technology committee. What does that mean? What are we going to accomplish? We kicked around a bunch of ideas and we finally realized that our role was to provide to the various leagues across the country ideas about technology and to capitalize on our experience and knowledge. Okay, we have a purpose. I even knew that at the National Women's Leadership Conference, we were going to have 15 minutes for a presentation. What are we going to present? I don't know, do you? We then took about 5 minutes throwing out ideas about technology. What can we share? Well, there's LinkedIn, there's Twitter, there's all kinds of things that go back and forth. We were just flying with ideas faster than the hands can even go. After a few minutes, we all took a breath and looked at the wonderment of what we had created. We had adapted to this technology. We knew that we were going to be able to pull something out of all of these ideas. We picked 3 projects. How to promote our league, how to make a hybrid league, and lastly, how to make Facebook videos, and if they can go viral, even better. At that point, we said, okay, which one should we do first? As the committee chair, I decided that we were going to tackle the easiest one first. And I thought I had a good reason for this. My rationale was this. I have 3 people that don't know technology. They know nothing about it. So let's build up their confidence. Let's start with something slow and easy so that they have the opportunity to dip their toe in instead of doing the famous cannonball. We decided to do how to promote a league. Then we sat down and we figured out what ways can you promote the league? And we came up with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Nextdoor and Meetup and on and on and on. Eventbrite, RegFox, there were so many different ways. We picked 3, Facebook, Meetup, and Nextdoor. We then divvied up things that we would like to know about these 3 programs. How much do they cost? Do they allow us to have calendar access? How about reminders? What is the audience reach? We divvied up the responsibilities, and one woman had the responsibility of putting it all together in some kind of a comparison chart. Wow, this sounded great. We'll meet back in 4 weeks. Everybody didn't have a lot to do. About 2 weeks later, I checked in with everyone only to find out no one had done anything. Uh-oh, this was not going the way I had thought it would. I then said, if you can't do your part, no problem. We can disperse it out to others, but we need to have some community connection to make sure we know what's happening. Well, lo and behold, everybody kind of said, oh yeah, I did commit. I'll do something. And they did that. By the time we met, all of the information had been gathered and we had a beautiful presentation chart. I found leading this team was really interesting. First of all, I've never volunteered for a committee that I didn't know anything about. Usually I volunteer because I have something to offer, not because the committee has something to offer to me. So that was an interesting little twist on how we were looking at this. But this was the first time I had been connecting with the committee online only. Usually I have online meetings and then a whole bunch of us get together and we still have the personal connection. In this scenario, there was no hugging. There was no, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. It was all very distant. And even though I knew these women, I didn't know how they would react to different things and how we should proceed. So I found this a bit of a challenge to take the emotional piece out of leading and make it a little more steadfast. I'm excited to say that we are now working on part 2, the hybrid league, which I know about, so I'm excited for that. And the viral videos, yeah, can't wait to see that because I know there are some women in this group that have that down pat. So overall, what is my experience with leading? It's definitely different when you're leading people only through the internet versus when you are connecting with them physically. Do I like it? Yes, because leading is leading. Would I choose to do online only? No, I think I like the hybrid method where you still get to see people, sit down and have a meal with them, and get to know them a little more personally. That's my idea. And one last thing I did find out was that the women that signed up because they wanted to learn were the ones that really dove into their sections. And I had a girlfriend that said to me, Lois, you either learn or you die. I said to her, Tamika, isn't there a middle section in there? I mean, that's kind of learn or die. She goes, nope, you learn or you die. So I ask you, are you learning? Because the option is not pleasant. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lois, in demonstrating, modeling for us the ability to adapt as things comes your way, maybe a little bit different from what you originally thought it would. Our second speaker for this evening is Jacinta. She's working on the Presentation Mastery Level 3, Increasing Knowledge, Persuasive Speaking. The title of her speech is No Manners, No Money. The absence of business and social etiquette will negatively impact our future workforce. There is a thought-provoking yet controversial solution. Jacinta will be presenting from this Presentation Mastery Level 3 project for 5 to 7 minutes. No manners, no money. Jacinta.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. And good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Every high school and college student should be required to pass a business and social etiquette course before they graduate from school. Let me say that again. Every high school and college student should be required to pass a business etiquette course before they graduate from school. Ladies and gentlemen, our workforce, our future workforce is in jeopardy. If you think that this statement does not apply to you or impact you in any way, I disagree. Today we're going to discuss the solution I've proposed that I previously mentioned. Some issues that go around it. You may have some objections that we'll discuss, and we'll also talk about what you could actually do to help make our workforce better than ever before. About 70% of high school students go to college after they graduate, meaning the other 30% end up going to the workforce, which is great. However, none of those students have any type of requirement to complete some type of business or social etiquette training. I've noticed over the past several years that there is an increasing amount of acceptance of unprofessional behavior in the workplace. I'll give you a couple illustrations that I noticed throughout the past couple of years on my end. Most of you know that I work as a general dentist and I treat patients. However, I do manage a fairly qualified health center's dental program where I have about 38 employees. So I'm able to see different candidates come through the door. I had one candidate come through the door, and when I asked about how she dealt with office conflict, her response was, I don't deal with office drama. Had another person come in that was a younger candidate that came to the interview with sweatpants. Yes, she came in with sweatpants. I was trying to adapt in my mind as to what are these individuals thinking, and I realized that they did not have any formal training or any type of guidance on how to be proper in a work environment. For those individuals, they didn't receive any money because I didn't hire them. The solution in terms of requiring all high school and college graduates to take a business and social etiquette course would be amazing for all of us. We would have a group of polished individuals who were professional and would make our workplaces so much more pleasant than they already are. Imagine you as a business owner. You are surrounded by excellence. All of your employees are on their game all the time. They are superstars. How does that reflect to you as a business owner when they interact with them, with other individuals? Or if you're going out shopping or dining, all of us have had experiences where our experience has not been that great or was definitely less than stellar. Imagine that everyone was polished and professional, and how your customer service experience would be. It'd be much better, right? Now, you may have some objections. You may say, there's not enough time in the school schedule for them to be able to do that. So let me break this down to where it applies to dollars. I had two of my employees. One came in with a very low cleavage shirt on. The second one decided she wanted to curse an employee. And guess what? I had to send them home. That cost our company productivity, and it cost us revenue, which is definitely devastating for a business owner or anyone that manages a company. You might say, times are changing. People work from home. We're all relaxed now. And that's true. I agree. But I would like to add that, yes, you can work at your home in your pajamas. But when you go outside, your pajamas need to stay at home. They should not go into the workplace. I struggle with my team constantly about different clothes in their younger generation. And that's just what they're used to. So for a moment, I'd like everyone to just take a big, deep breath. Imagine a world where we had individuals that had proper business and social etiquette. What would it look like for all of us? We would have quality employees. We would have increased productivity. There would be a huge transition within different types of organizations and how quickly they could grow. We would have an enhanced customer service experience no matter where we went, dining or shopping, anything at all. There would be so many individuals who would be able to have an opportunity to get a job because they at least presented themselves in such a way that where they could get a job. And last, there would be such a large generational shift. The information they learned would go to different individuals in their future generations. So what can you do to help me on this quest? You can call your local schools. You can call your local universities and explain to them a situation where your experience was less than stellar because someone didn't have proper business and social etiquette. And require them and ask them, encourage them to please include this in their programs. We've summarized and discussed how requiring all students to be able to graduate before or have to finish up with their class first, some of the solutions, some of the objections you may have, and what you can do to help me in this quest. No manners, no money applies to everyone. I guarantee you, if you have an employee that does not have manners, they will cost you money. And if you're an employee that does not have manners, you will not be able to get an opportunity for a job because you won't be able to. They won't be able to hire you. Help me on this quest, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jacinta. I'm just glad that I didn't show any of my cleavage this evening. And you just have to trust me on it. I am not wearing sweats. Our third speaker tonight is Norman. Norman is working off of the Pathway Visionary Communication Level 1. He's working on the evaluation and feedback project. This is his second time giving this speech. He is starting a blog called God's Griot. God's Griot. So it's spelled godsgriot.com, GODSGRIOT.com. Now this is a redo of his first speech about the blog e-magazine. He will focus on more clearly communicating his message and what's in it for his listener. A voice for an invisible church. Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. And let me share my screen. Okay. A voice for the invisible church. The invisible church actually is the Black church in America. Let's just start with some numbers. I looked at the handbook of US and Canadian churches and looked at the largest denominations, the 20 largest denominations, and prepared this chart. You don't have to read the word, but essentially the orange ones are the predominantly Black churches or Black denominations. About 95, 98% of the members of the Black denominations are actually Black. The blue ones are the predominantly white denominations, and some of those have significant numbers of Black members. For instance, the Southern Baptist Convention actually has 3,200 Black churches. But given that Blacks are about 1 in 10 Americans, wow, there are lots of large denominations in a minority population. In fact, about it, when I put the numbers together, I found that essentially 1 out of 3 Protestant in the United States belong to Black churches or Black denominations. 1 out of 3. That's an awful lot. That's a big, big percentage. Again, given that Blacks are about 1 out of 10 Americans. But why do I call it the invisible church? Well, there's a history to this. When the Black church started during the time when most Blacks were enslaved, they weren't allowed to gather in formal churches for the most part. Most of the church happened out of the sight of the master, in fields, down by the riverside, surreptitiously. There wasn't any obvious structures when people got together every Sunday and had mass, or where there was an actual liturgy practice. But people went off to themselves and prayed, sung. The invisible church had real vitality. It enabled people to get through inexpressible cruelty. It birthed the spirituals, the Negro spirituals. It actually was the incubator for the Underground Railroad. Many of you know about Harriet Tubman, a famous preacher, conductor on the Underground Railroad. But the Black church has no magazine and has no voice. For all the thousands and thousands of Black congregations, there is no magazine aimed at Black church leaders. There is no mass media aimed at Black church leaders. No magazine, no voice. In fact, about it, it brings to mind an African proverb. Until the lions have their own historians, tales of hunting will always glorify the hunter. We don't have a voice. That's where we come in, God's griot. By the way, a griot is a West African storyteller, preacher, historian that is actually the custodian of the culture and faith for a people. God's griot is a periodical for Black Christian leaders telling the truth about their situation, prophetically talking about what their congregations are facing. It is a solution to the voice or lack thereof in the Black church. Well, it's all well and good for an African American audience, and there aren't that many African Americans in this audience, so why should non-Blacks care? You're looking at a picture of the Apostolic Faith Gospel Mission Some people call it Azusa Street. A one-eyed black son of a former slave with a passion for serving God showed up in LA in 1906. And he started praying and preaching and doing what God told him to do in an unprecedented manner. And something happened where the kinds of behavior that we see in the book of Acts, where people spoke in tongues and there was healing and prophecy, those kinds of things that we tend not to see in churches today, started happening in this little building, which had been a stable, and before that an AME church. The newspapers picked it up. People around the world started hearing about it. He was a communicator. He had a 10,000 member email list, well, not email, mailing list back then. People came from around the world. And modern Pentecostalism started in this church. Now, Pentecostalism was around, but it's not that major an influence in America. There are currently a Vatican Council in 2006 estimated that there were 600 million Pentecostal Christians. They all started with this one guy in the black church in LA. What's the next move of God? By the way, it's happening in Asia, in Africa, in South America. It's the fastest spreading movement of Christians around the world. That's why we should care. Now, what I would suggest that you do is help me out, subscribe to godsgrill.com. We are launching it as a blog, then newsletter, and hopefully following through with a actual magazine. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Norman. Talk about being adaptive and to the time and the need, and to be able to deliver something that is useful to the people around us in a timely manner. Thank you very much. Mr. Timer, did our three speaker qualify their times?
They all qualified.
Thank you. You can go ahead and type in their actual length of their speeches into the chat box. They all qualify. Please go ahead and send your vote of your favorite speaker for this evening to our vote counter, Mr. Liu. And you will find him in the chat box, starting with a V, vote counter. He have changed his name to vote counter Liu. Now that we got a chance to hear our three prepared speakers, we also like to have a chance to pick on the rest of you, and maybe including our feature speaker, the prepared speakers also. Help me welcome our table topic master, Mr. Scott Johnston.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. Impromptu speaking, table topics. Gotta love it, haven't you? And today we're going to talk on the theme. So all respondees get the opportunity to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. And it's their opportunity to adapt to whatever the question may be. Our first question, really, it's on the theme of spilt milk. Don't cry over spilt milk. So on February the 11th, it is actually a National Day of Crying Over Spilt Milk Day. It was actually first coined in 1659 by James Howell, who coined the phrase, "no weeping for shed milk." And since 1659, it has evolved to what it is today. So what will you be doing to celebrate on National Don't Cry Over Spilt Milk, David Carr?
What day again did you say it was? Was it Tuesday, Wednesday? Or is it today?
It's actually February the 11th. Don't Cry Over Spilt Milk Day.
February 11th.
Well, how will you be celebrating it?
I probably will be crying over something else. I'll be crying over the well, I don't know, just all the wrong decisions I've made in my life to wind up here. But no, not all of them. I'm happy I met all you folks. This is a bright point in my week. But yeah, I guess the spilt milk is always the thing that is over and done with, that is past, that you can't change. Hey, we've got a fair number of those in our lives, probably in all of our lives. And don't cry over them because it doesn't help, because they're still screwed up afterwards. All that. So, boy, I am the very image of Mr. Articulate tonight, am I not? Okay, well, I see the green bottle coming up, and so I'm going to surrender and slink away ungracefully.
Thank you very much, David. It was a curly question, but I think you actually did pretty well answering that question. Our next question is question 2. What do you take of crying over spilt milk to mean? What do you think it means, crying over spilt milk? Jason, what do you think that might mean?
Well, crying over spilled milk basically means not dwelling on the past and not dwelling over past mistakes and failures, because every failure that you think of or have experienced only builds you up to the next one. And I think in this group as Toastmasters, we all have had that feeling of spilled milk. The section of your speech that you may have forgotten, the ahs and ums that you've been doing for 100 times, and you think, oh, I got to get that out of my system. I think also the speech contest you may have lost. I think all those opportunities are areas where you can improve upon your speaking and not dwell on those spilled milk, but take that as an opportunity to become a better speaker the next time. And certainly doing this with headphones and a microphone is a different feeling as well, but I guess I'll get used to that. And certainly not looking to cry over spilled milk over these online presentations. It's a very fun experience, and I look forward to learning from each and every one of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jason. I think you nailed that question, so congratulations, well done. It was well said. Have you ever cried over spilt milk, Rolando?
Thank you, Mr. Topic Master. Fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests. No, I've not cried over spilled milk because I've always tried to adapt to whatever was going on. Since today is National Don't Spill Milk Day, I'm not only thinking about Thursday night, which is Valentine's Day. I'm thinking about, okay, which mall or which store I'm going to stop by that has a Victoria's Secret that will have somebody that can help me. Because every year I have this problem. Okay, I'm not going to go to a Victoria's Secret, but I need someplace somebody will help me there. I don't want to be there by myself. But when you go to some stores, sometimes you don't find anybody to help you. So I just walk in, nobody's helped me, and I don't know what I'm doing, so I just walk away. I'll go to the next store. So last year, I went to the town center in Boca Raton, and they were very helpful. So tomorrow night, I think I'm going to try to go there again to see if I can get lucky again. Back to you, Mr. Master.
Thank you very much, Orlando. Well answered. Couldn't have done it better myself. Hopefully we've got time for one more. So the next one is it spilled or is it spilt? What do you think is the right term? Or are they both right? Lou Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Topics Master. That's an interesting one. I think it really depends on where you live, because in my neck of the woods, we say spilled milk, although we don't always add that D. We just say, don't cry over spill milk, spill milk. So it sounds more like spill, not spilled. Of course, as you can hear, it's actually kind of labor intensive to add that D, spilled. So I think that's why most people kind of let the D slide. Now, if you grow up on the West Coast, they say spilt. I think because I think it sounds more bougie, valley girl, totally like awesome something or other. I don't know. But don't cry over spilt milk. You know, kind of, not sure if I did my best, bougie impression, but I think you know where I'm going with that. Don't cry over spilt milk. Now, of course, you also have some folks in other parts of the country who don't say spilled or spilt. I think because of their accent, their dialect, quite frankly, it's hard to understand exactly what they're saying, but they may say something like, don't cry over spilled milk. I'm not even sure if I really fully understood that was spilled milk, because it came out so fast. Don't cry over spilled milk. But I think if you kind of ask them to repeat it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, eventually you get the idea that, oh, you're talking about spilled milk, or spilt milk, or spill milk, depending on what part of the country you come from. Either way, all spills wind up at the same place, on the floor. Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you, Lou. You certainly twisted that one right around, and we appreciate your reply. This timer is, did everybody qualify?
Yes, everybody qualified.
In that case, you can please send your votes to Lou. No cheating, Lou. No counting for yourself. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Our 4 table topic speaker were David, Jason, Rolando, and Lou. Their time has been posted in the chat box. Go ahead and send your choice of best table topic speaker to our vote counter, Mr. Lou. Now that we move into our 3rd segment of our meeting, the evaluation part, where we're going to evaluate not just our prepared speaker, but every part of our meeting. To lead us in that activity, help me welcome our general evaluator, Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for a great meeting so far. Let's find out now about the evaluations. Now, I don't need to go through why evaluations are so important. We are all, of course, Toastmasters here, so we understand. But I like the fact that in this club, evaluations are so strong and so vital. The first of the evaluations tonight, evaluating Lois Margolin's speech, is going to be by Therese. Therese, can you please present your evaluation in a time of 2 to 3 minutes, please, Mr. Timekeeper. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Therese, or Teresa, in fact, I think.
Mr. Toastmaster, Lois, and fellow Toastmasters, are you learning? Really, are you learning every day? Are you putting your hand up and volunteering when you absolutely don't know anything about what you're volunteering for? Well, I definitely commend Lois for taking this leap into the absolute unknown. You clearly demonstrated your leadership ability through this project, through leading a team to first define your goals, to define your purpose, and to assure that every member had a role that showed the value of them and defined what their purpose of being in this program was, and that allowed them to grow. The reflection of the lesson learned is very relevant, not only to me, but I think to everyone, because we're all interested in having more interactions in the online club experience and program and projects and everything. And so that was really helpful to understand your thought in that. You're an amazing speaker, and in this club, you are my role model. And so it's really hard to pick on things. So I have to be down to the nitpicky. So that's where I'm at. What I would say is I would like to see you slow down. So at the beginning, when I asked the questions, I really wanted, and I'm hoping that you felt like you were thinking about the answer. Are you learning? Are you really learning every day? And I think that especially in questions that you offered at the end, that showed where you really could use slowing down. But all the way through, I would like to allow for people who are like me, who speak and think and listen slowly, to slow down. And I did notice that your eyes seem to be off to the side, so I assume that you may have some notes that you're looking at. And your background, while it was relevant because you did refer to it, I think that it would have been less distracting to just speak of it instead of offering that extra background. And the last one is that when you are using your hands, I would like to see a little bit more simplified jewelry and polish. But you are an amazing speaker, so it took me down to the nitpicky to find anything, and I would love to be on your team. Thank you.
That's me, isn't it? I keep forgetting in this club the general evaluator does this stuff, not the Toastmaster. Sorry about that. Thank you, Therese. Our second evaluator tonight is Jim Barber. Now, Jim is going to be evaluating the second speech, which was, of course, he says, looking at the agenda because he's not quite sure where everything is. Speaker 2, Jacinta's persuasive speaking. So, Jim, once again, for a time of 2 to 3 minutes, please welcome Jim Barber.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, my fellow Toastmasters, and of course, especially Jacinta Watkins. This was Presentation Mastery Level 3 Presentation Persuasive Speaking. No manners, no money. First of all, great title. I liked that. That just brought us in, told us what you were going to do, but kept us intrigued as well. Overall, this was a very impressive presentation. From your opening, I loved your opening. This was a great technique. You stated a proposition, and I have to admit, but myself, and I think it probably applies to a lot of other people, we're not paying as much attention as we probably ought to. So somebody will say something great at the beginning of the speech, and we've missed it because we haven't gotten locked in yet. You started with stating the proposition, and then you said, let me say that again. And then you restated the proposition. Nobody could have missed what you were saying. That was a great technique. I love that. You closed with another great technique. You said, help me on that quest. That's a call to action. It's a great closing, but it's also you asked for help. And that's establishing a rapport with your audience. You weren't just telling them something to do. You were asking for their help. That was wonderful. In between, everything was great. Your clarity, your diction, they were top-notch. You have a wonderful use of the pause, and it makes for a very conversational presentation. That worked very, very nicely. You, as I mentioned before, but again, you establish a great rapport with your audience. You asked us to imagine, what would it be like? You didn't tell us what it would be like. You asked us to think of what would it be like. You also then a few moments later said, so what can you do? You didn't tell us what to do. You asked us, what would you do? That brings your audience in. That was a great thing to do. So for all of these reasons and more, this was an impressive presentation. But of course, your goal was to be persuasive, and that wouldn't do any good if you weren't persuasive. You were persuasive. I don't think there was a person here. I was looking around at the gallery view, and I don't think there was a person here that wasn't agreeing with what you were saying. In fact, everybody was chiming in on the chat room and so on like that. You were touching people with logic. It made sense. You reached people. You were persuasive. I have one suggestion for you. Your gestures, occasionally you had good gestures. I liked slitting the throat and things like that. But most of your gestures, if you had them, were below the screen. Get your hands up higher. We need something more to look at than just your face, as attractive as your face is, and I'm going to get in trouble for that, I know, but get your gestures up here beside your face so that we have something else to see. Keep us entertained, but this was a great, very persuasive presentation, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Jim, and I'm not going to comment on whether it was appropriate. I'm just going to let that one slide straight through to the keeper. Our third evaluator today is Tracy, and Tracy is going to be evaluating Norman's second version of this speech. I'm not sure whether Tracy was here at Norman's first version, but I guess we will find out very soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our third evaluator, Tracy. You're still muted, Tracy.
Unmute yourself, please.
And I was going so good. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, my fellow Toastmasters, and especially you, Norman. I would like to give you a personal thank you, Norman, because every time you give this speech and I have the opportunity to evaluate it, which, yes, this is my second time evaluating your speech, I do have the opportunity to grow right alongside with you. So thank you for that.
Tracy, somehow you got muted again. Sorry. David, if you can keep an eye on that for us.
Which part did you hear up until?
You were giving thanks.
You just thanked him.
I was thanking Norman for the opportunity to grow right alongside with you. And being that this is my second time evaluating this particular speech, as you get better, I get better as an evaluator. And indeed, you did get better this speech. It was wonderful. I think you did a fantastic job. I noticed that you were able to adapt the changes that I had previously suggested right into not only the slides, but into your presentation and into your eye contact. We understand that the invisible church is the Black church. You gave us those wonderful statistics, which I really enjoyed last time as I did this time, and a full understanding that during slave times, there was no organized church. You then gave us this dramatic, no magazine, no voice. You even had it on the slide right in the center. Loved that church and letting us know that this e-magazine and blog is aimed at Black church leaders. You gave us the Lion of the Historian, which incidentally this week, I saw a slide that equated lions to leaders, and lions don't have to tell you that they're a lion. And Norman, you don't have to tell us that you're a leader. We can see it, it's evident. Your e-magazine and blog and the organization of these Black churches is coinciding right at the end of the 400 years. Good job to you, you're a leader, amazing. What I'd like to see, and what I think that you can incorporate a little bit better, would be for you to explain a little bit further how this is not only going to help the leaders of the Black churches, but what it will mean to the people, what it will mean to their congregants. And I know that you did say that you were going to explain why other people outside of people of color should also be interested and concerned with this. However, unfortunately, I did miss that mark. I want you to tell me exactly why I, Tracy Kawa, sunning herself here in Boca Raton, white Jewish lady, why should I be interested, even if it means interviewing me, interviewing a few people to find out why, what would be so compelling to us that we would support you 100%. Other than that, you had a phenomenal call to action at the end. Loved the slide that you added, liked your definition of the griot, and as soon as I find out what will compel me to join this blog, I am going to be the first person to sign up. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Tracy. Now, Mr. Timekeeper, I'm pretty sure all of the evaluators were within time, but I will just check. Is that the case? Yes,
Yes, they were all within time.
Cool. In that case, everybody, can you please send your vote to the vote counter on the best evaluator for the day as well? That's under V for vote counter. Lou, I'm assuming he's creating a V symbol there. I'm not quite sure. It's no, whatever it is, it's there. Please send your vote to Lou, and he will let us know before we finish. Now, moving briefly to the reports from the functionaries, and I'll start with our grammarian this evening. And our grammarian, actually no, first I'll start with the R counter, and that's Magda. Magda, can you let us know how we went in terms of ums, ahs, pauses, and stuffs this evening? You're still muted, by the way. No, you're not.
Thank you, but I'm missing my voting opportunity now.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I will just blabber it out. Good. The only person that I saw do visibly, well, you know, saw doing a nice breathing exercise was none other than Jacinta. With her pauses, I could see she was taking a breath, and then she carried on. Now I'm going to report on the filler words. Now I wish I had a guitar. Not only a guitar, but I wish I could play the guitar, because then I could sing this to you. David, so, yeah, so. John, so. Lois, congrats, not one. Jacinta, only a so. Norman, congrats. Scott, so. Jason, Rolando, just so. Lo, congrats. Graham, so. Teresa, congrats. Jim Barber, so. Tracy, congrats. End of my song. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Magda. So, a needle full of gaps, whatever, I don't know. I was going somewhere with that, and I think I should stop now. Grammarian Carol Prahinsky, can you give us a brief grammarian's report, please, Carol?
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Graham. I'd love to. First, the word adapt was adapted and used by Roger, Scott, Tracy, Jacinta, and Rolando. I was actually quite impressed. 5 of you. Ooh. All right, Lois. Quotes of the day. Throwing out ideas. It made it seem disposable almost. Welcome to our society. Then you had flying with ideas, faster than the hands can go, and the hand movement, of course, was coordinated. Learn or die. It sounds very, we could make a song out of it, and keep working at it. All right, Jacinta, 70% of high school grads go to college. I was actually kind of surprised at that. I thought it was a little higher, but I am so biased. Norman, it birthed the spirituals. I love the connotation in the word choices. And then the 1906 one-eyed black son of a slave owner. I thought that was quite visual as well, even though there was only one eye. Scott, I'm going to surrender and slink away gracefully. Oh, that was David. Sorry, David. I'm going to surrender and slink away gracefully. I love that image as well. Teresa, slow down. Are you learning? Just teasing you, Sir Teresa. Love that phrase. Tracy, I do have the opportunity to grow right alongside with you. I thought that was beautiful. Norman, you don't have to tell us you are a leader. We can see it. Again, beautiful statement, beautiful sentiment. Love it. Thank you so much. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Madam Grammarian. Now moving to our watcher. And David, were there any particularly egregious errors of the use of technology here tonight?
Nothing egregious. I mostly wanted to say nice things, actually.
Oh, good.
About people using the medium in terms of talking directly to the camera and being engaging to the camera. Your face can be all the body language you need if you use it right. And I think Lois and Jacinta definitely used it right. They did also manage to work some body language into the frame. The chop, chop, chop for how fast things were going in Lois's speech. And she was counting off some things on her fingers. Jacinta also worked in some counting off some things on her fingers. Somebody dinged the background. I guess Therese mentioned the background maybe being distracted. I thought it was appropriate. It was a social network graph. I did notice that your green screen was drooping at some point, and so we saw a little bit of reality peeking out from behind, and I've had that happen too. Yeah, as I say, I'm still working on that. But Jacinta talking directly into the camera, and just her facial expressions on, I disagree, or something like that, that she would punch it. A big smile on when she talked about making things better than ever before. And I like the throat cut. I don't necessarily agree with my friend Mr. Barber. I think she got enough of the hand gestures up into the frame to carry her message. But Norman, I'd tell you if you're going to do PowerPoint, try and queue up the PowerPoint into presentation mode ahead of time so you can just switch directly to that. You did use good slides with striking photos, just a few words rather than bullet points. There was one image on the slide that says no magazine, no voice. And I couldn't quite make out what it was at first. It was, the red circle with the slash through it to say no. And I guess it was supposed to be the silhouette of a black man screaming or shouting or trying to get his voice out. But at first I thought it was a picture of a lion or something. So it was a little too much of a Rorschach test for me. Yeah. Anyway, so that could potentially be clarified. Jason had a great big smile in his table topic. He kind of took us on the journey of learning how to adapt to this online environment. Tracy, you could maybe work on getting some more powerful lighting in the space that you're using, if you can, because you actually look kind of washed out and faded in the background. You're making the webcam work too hard, basically. And Magda, I don't know, is that green screen behind you or is that reality? Whatever it is, it looks good. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mr. Watcher. Thank you for that. Given that we are an online club, it is important that we consider such matters. Very briefly, John, you've put everything into the chat report. Is there anything you wish to add verbally?
There was a lot of Valentine-esque banter and flirtation and other affection shown today that I excluded from the report. And I didn't know that all the aficionados of typewriters were in this club. I think Typewriter Talk magazine is coming soon. We'll have 2 magazines in the club. General value.
Thank you. The chat was interesting tonight, as always. Now, vote counter, Lou Brown.
Before I announce the winners, I just want to say one thing, and that is I've been vote counter a few times, and I don't always get all the votes. And I'm not just missing 1 or 2, I'm missing more than that. So I'd like to say, while voting has consequences, not voting also has consequences. With that said, best speaker. Sorry, let's start from the back and go forward. Best table topic is Jason. Woo! Best eval, Miss Tracy. Woo! And best speaker, Jacinta. Woo! Good job, everyone.
Thank you, Lou. All right, we are well over time, so I'm going to do this very briefly. Comments for each of the evaluators and a couple of other things. Therese, your evaluation I thought was fine. You pointed to the lessons that Lois included. You also offered suggestions on what she should do and why, on how, but also, and this is really important, Therese offered why Lois should do certain things, and that was particularly valid. Never apologize if you can't find something to say, because if you can't find something to say, for example, I have nothing to say for Tracy, I'm just not going to mention that. For Jim, pointed to the excellent open and close of the speech, and also noted the on-screen gestures, but while Jim told us about the purpose of this speech, he didn't actually address whether he addressed whether the speaker had met the objectives, but didn't say why or why not. And as an evaluator, it's important that we actually address the objectives of each presentation, particularly as we get to more advanced roles. Tracy noted the on-screen thanks. I love the way Tracy began with thanks and pointed out to the specific improvements which Norman had made. And I love the phrase, you don't need to tell us a leader, you're a leader. We can see that from your actions. Well done. Scott's topics were really good, although it did take us a little while to get to them. David spilled meal, a bit rambly, but nice humour and a certain amount of honesty there, which I thought was great to see. Jason turned this into a nice reflection, not just of spilled milk, but also of Toastmasters and a shared experience that we all have. And that's valuable when you're doing a table topic. Rolando's good use of adapt and also taking it to something completely different, going off to Valentine's Day and getting assistance from the staff in Victoria's Secrets. Not quite where I was expecting that to go, but I really enjoyed that, Rolando. Well done. And Lou's spilled or spilt. Bougie, I'm not quite sure, but the Valley Girl and the accents and the twist at the end. Well done. It was a gregarious pre-start to the meeting. Everybody was really happy to be here. I love the word of the day being adapt and adding it in. It was short, sharp and shiny for the first quarter of the meeting, but then as always, we blew out at the end. I think we need to look at trying to reduce the time or to bring the time of the events at the last third of the meeting a little further forward, because we run out every week. Toastmaster Roger, some lovely links, some warm intros, a great job of being a Toastmaster. And with that, I yield control to the club's president to wrap us up for the day. So Jimmy,
Happy birthday to
Jimmy Dan.
Happy birthday to you.
Jimmy Dan.
You guys are on mute. Happy birthday, dear Jimmy. Happy birthday to you.
Thursday is Jimmy Dan's birthday. And I want, since he's a little bit under the weather, let me ask, Jason, have we scared you enough?
Well, I'm glad this is a public speaking group and not a singing group, because
Em started it with the R counting song that I've heard for the first time in the history of.
Well, that was very good. The birthday was, there's a lot to be.
Hey, I thought that was good.
That's why I stay muted.
Well, Jason loved Magda.
We need evaluators for
Carol. That's okay, Jason.
No, but I appreciate Lois for the invitation, and Roger, thank you for your warm welcome. We were exchanging emails. The online, as I mentioned in the chat room, the online presentation obviously sets up a whole host of new challenges, and it's just interesting to see how the polished speakers, all of you are polished speakers, addressing those challenges. And it's interesting to see, like just little things like people banging the desk or their hand gestures, things like that. You realize, wow, it's a whole other level of little things you need to be aware of when you're doing your speeches. So I love the energy. I love everyone here. The speeches were great. Evaluations are great. And I thank you all for allowing me to sit in tonight.
Well, thank you, Jason. We would love to have you back and get more used to the online environment and maybe join us also. Knowing the time has already passed the top of the hour, I will officially end the meeting. And I do have 3 more comments real quick. So good night to anyone who needs to go. Goodbye, and David can end the recording. 3 quick comments. Number 1, on March 25th, the last Monday,